Common Sense and Nuclear Warfare by Bertrand Russell. Read by the author. Chapter 5. New Outlook Needed Before Negotiations. It is not the purpose of this chapter to suggest specific measures for the diminution of the likelihood of nuclear war. For the present, I will consider only general outlook which should prevail on both sides if negotiations are to have a chance of success. First thing necessary is a new assessment of national interests in all the powerful countries of the world. The measures which should be suggested with a view to the preservation of peace ought all to be such as to further the national interest of all the countries concerned. The new assessment that is called for consists only in an acknowledgement of facts, not in a change of aims. It is for this reason that an appeal to governments may hope to succeed, since neither side is asked to renounce anything that is practicable. Powerful countries hitherto have two kinds of purposes in their policy. On the one hand, they have sought the prosperity of their own countries. On the other hand, they have sought domination, political, economic, or ideological, over other countries. This second aim has usually been pursued by means of war. What is new in the present situation is that the pursuit of foreign domination by means of war is much less possible than it used to be. It is still as possible as it ever was for governments to promote the internal prosperity of their countries, but foreign domination, except where it already exists, is no longer possible road to the prosperity of an imperialist country. Statesman who aims at making his country safe and prosperous can now only achieve his aim by making all powerful countries safe and prosperous. This is not due to any new morality. It is due solely to the potentialities of scientific warfare. You may, if you are Russian, consider that it would be a good thing if all the world were communist. You may, if you are an American or a Western European, consider it would be good if all the world adopted the political and economic system of your own country. Nobody should be asked to renounce either of these opinions. But what must be renounced is the belief that either can be achieved through a world war. This is something definitely new in human history. In the conflicts between Christianity and Islam, it was a war that decided which countries should be Christian and which Mohammedan. In the conflicts between Protestants and Catholics, it was again military success and failure that decided the issue. America, North and South, is Christian because European arms were more effective than those of Red Indians. The long history has become so deeply embedded in the outlook of both statesmen and ordinary men that it is extremely hard to think in new terms required in the modern world. Prominent authors in America, Britain, Russia, and China have in quite recent times expressed their belief that the ideology which they favor could be rendered worldwide by a nuclear war. It is impossible to know whether such pronouncements are wholly sincere or whether they are part of a game of bluff. Whichever they may be, they are exceedingly dangerous. If they are only bluff, there is a danger that bluff may be called. It is impossible to know with any precision what the outcome of a nuclear war would be. Some think that half the population of the world would survive, some think only a quarter, and some think none. It is not necessary in considering policy to decide among such possibilities. What is quite certain is that the world which would emerge from a nuclear war would not be such as it is desired by either Moscow or Washington. On the most favorable hypothesis, it would consist of destitute populations maddened by hunger, debilitated by disease, deprived of the support of modern industry and means of transport, incapable of supporting educational institutions, and rapidly sinking to the level of ignorant savages. This, I repeat, is the most optimistic forecast, which is in any degree plausible. It is not a forecast that can be welcome to the advocates of any present-day ideology, or to any humane person, or even to anybody possessed of the rudiments of sanity. It is on the kind of ground It is on this kind of ground that the national interests of different states, however they may conflict on minor issues, are all identical on one point, that nuclear war must be prevented. What is required is not any sacrifice of national interests, but only a more just appraisal of what these countries involved. Suppose that you are a patriotic Russian, or a patriotic Briton, or a patriotic American. If you think in old-fashioned terms, you will have purposes of two kinds. On the one hand, you will seek such internal measures as are likely to promote the welfare of your own citizens. On the other hand, you will seek means of promoting your nation's welfare at the expense of the welfare of other nations. This latter part of your aims has hitherto been pursued mainly by means of war. It cannot now be pursued by this means. I do not say that it cannot be pursued at all. Russia profits by the uranium of Czechoslovakia, and Britain profits by the oil of the Middle East. But both of these situations arose before the present nuclear deadlock. Further extensions of the domination of either Eastern or Western bloc, if they are such as would be resisted by war, are no longer possible. The situation, in its schematic simplicity, is this. Although a nuclear war would be disastrous to everybody, there are certain issues for which people would fight, even if it were clear that fighting would do no good. A way must therefore be found of avoiding such issues, and this will only be possible if each side, quite genuinely and quite sincerely, abandons the hope of success by means of war. Let us try to give some concrete substance to this rather abstract statement. Some prominent Russians believe, or profess to believe, that the ordinary citizen of the United States groans under the tyranny of Wall Street, and would welcome the opportunity to enjoy such freedom as is offered by the Kremlin. Many people in the United States believe, or profess to believe, that the Soviet government is hated in Russia, and that a majority of Russians would welcome the opportunity of rebelling against it. Such beliefs on either side must not be allowed to influence policy, since, on each side, the opposing belief will, if necessary, be resisted by force. It may be that the future belongs to communism. It may be that it belongs to the American way of life. It may be that it belongs to neither. Those who favor either should be free to spread their belief by peaceful propaganda. Christian missionaries, no doubt, hope that in a time all the world will be Christian, but most of them no longer appeal to armed force to support their missionary efforts. In like manner, adherents of the Eastern system or of the Western system should be unhampered in their missionary efforts, so long as they sincerely renounce world conquest by military methods. At present, the Far East and West, and the West fears the East. In each case, because, not wholly without reason, each side fears that the other aims at world conquest by arms. Since modern weapons have made this aim unattainable, it is time that it was abandoned on both sides, and abandoned with such sincerity as would leave each side in no doubt that the other had abandoned it. On this question of sincerity, the initial difficulties are very great. Ever since 1945, they have rendered all negotiations abortive. If mutual trust is to be gradually generated, it will have to be by such measures on both sides as could only be prompted by a genuine desire for peace, without victory for either side. Perhaps the first and most convincing proof of sincerity that could be given would be the abandonment of secrecy by both sides. If each side allowed all its armaments to be inspected by the other side, that would afford a fairly convincing proof that war was not surreptitiously intended. Another fairly convincing measure, which might offer less difficulty, would be an agreement to invite neutrals as arbitrators in difficult disputes. These, however, are only preliminary suggestions, of which I shall have more to say in subsequent chapters. There is one very simple matter in which improvement is possible without any negotiations or any formal agreements. The authorities on both sides should revert to the official courtesy which used to be observed between the governments, and should abstain from publicly imputing tortuous motives to all moves that appear prima facie to be conciliatory. the ascription of superior morality to one's own side, which has been for many years habitual both in the East and in the West, is so irritating to negotiators as to make it humanly very difficult to refrain from ruinous results. Among Among the courtesies of debate should be included a cessation of threats of attack and of the suggestion that the other side is contemplating attack or likely to indulge in it. The harm done by threats consists not only in acerbating of tempers, but in the constant revival and increase of mutual fears both in the authorities and in the population. This is a simple and elementary matter, but I believe that, if adopted by the official representatives of East and West, it would enormously facilitate the approach to fruitful agreements.